Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Hamilton House for the personnel meeting this afternoon. There are no fire alarms. The fire alarms are tested every Monday morning, so there are no fire alarms tests planned for this afternoon. And should the fire alarm sound, it will be for real. In the event of a fire, please follow the instructions that will be given and congregate on the grass verge to the side of the Quick Fit building. The fire exits are the main stairwell to the reception area and a separate flight of stairs in the Nest Point breakout area.
The microphone a little bit closer to
Oh, sorry, yeah. I do tend a bit talk soft. Sorry, I'm turning my phone off either. Reportings at meetings. In the event of openness and transparency, councillors and members of the public are reminded that the law permits any person to film, record, photograph, or use social media in order to report on the proceedings of a meeting of the council or its committees when they're open to the public. The town council will record this meeting. Filming and photography will only be permitted from the area designated. No flash photography or additional lighting should be used without prior consent. Anyone wishing to report on the meeting should notify the clerk or chair so they can be afforded reasonable facilities. People under the age of 18 or other members of the public not wishing to be filmed or photographed should notify the clerk or chair and should sit in the area designated for this purpose. Improper conduct or any disruptive behaviour could result in expulsion from the meeting. Can you also ensure that your mobile phones are changed to silent or switched off and adhere to the non-smoking policy for this building and the grounds of Hamilton House? Welcome again, everybody. So have apologies for absence.
Councillor Jones and Councillor Newsom with reasons provided.
Andy? Yeah. Sorry, Elise, seconded. All those in favour? That's everybody. I may turn my chair's mic off periodically. You probably notice I've got quite a bad cough. I apologise. Right, 67. To receive declarations of disclosable, pecuniary, or other registrable and non-registrable interest from councillors on items on this agenda. Do we have any, Elise?
anything to do with the cleaning contracts?
Okay, thank you. And we've had no written requests.
No, we haven't, Chair. And just to say that when we get to item 73, the committee clerk will leave the meeting. I'll stay for any questions at 73.1 and then I'll leave as well.
Okay, thank you. Consider the draft minutes of the meeting of the 7th of September and the draft minutes and confidential note of the meeting of the 23rd of November. Wendy. We have a seconder, Andy?
Broadly happy to second. The only comment I would make is on the 23rd of November, the actual public minute for item 61. It's touched on in the confidential minute, but it's not really a confidential issue. It's just that the issue that was queried, we was told there was a policy. There'd just been a miscommunication and it hadn't happened on that occasion, but apparently there is already a policy in place. So it wasn't a case that we didn't have a policy. And I just wondered whether that confirmation that there is a policy in place and it slipped through the net on this occasion or whatever could be included in that minute, because I didn't want it to read this if we don't have a policy. And that is a reflection of the discussion in the meeting.
Just to say that when I read the public minutes of it, I thought, oh, and then when I looked at the confidential one, that gave the full details. So
Yeah, thank you, Sonia. You got that, Lauren? Okay. Okay, thank you. Public forum, an opportunity for the public to make. Sorry, yeah, thank you. Sorry, I got to forget.
Seconded it, got happy with that amendment.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, all those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you. Oh.
I only had actually, sorry, I did actually have one question. It says
microphone, please.
Oh, sorry. In the, I think it was the personnel minutes. It says that Councillor Jones left the meeting, but I think I'm just wondering if it was Councillor Youngman because of the cleaning bit. If that was a mistake.
No, Councillor Jones also left the meeting for personal reasons.
Oh, right. Okay, that's fine.
For clarity, we have also got Councillor Youngman recorded in the minutes as leaving.
Thank you. Public forum, opportunity for the public to make any comments. No members of the public here. Any on the webinar?
No one's online and no advance comments received.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Okay, 70 policies. Now, I've got to be fair, I haven't reviewed any of these. Andy?
I have, and I'm broadly happy with all of them. The only thing I would like to say is data retention is going to need reviewing as part of the discussion we had at the last meeting about the video meetings. How long do we keep them beyond 12 months? That it was agreed that we wouldn't make any specification on that because that needed to be considered in conjunction. So we agreed we would keep them for 12 months, but we didn't agree on keeping them beyond that, and if so, for how long, because it was agreed that would need a separate discussion in line with data retention. So that was kind of like it was an action arising, if you like, to review that. And the other one is I would like not today, but I think some consideration of lone working needs to be made in relation to Unit 2, particularly if we bring on that workhouse operative. Are we going to have any personnel in Unit 2 that are going to be on their own? Because that's essentially a new situation, I think that just requires a discussion. So I'm happy with it as it applies to Hamilton House. I think it needs some consideration in relation to Unit 2.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Anybody else, Sonia? And then Wendy. Go on then, Wendy.
Couple of on these, not major things. The complaints procedure and I think the discipline, I'm sorry, I haven't brought my notes with me. Or the grievance procedure, there's no time specific for it being dealt with. There's two of them where one of them does have it and two of them don't. They don't actually say it will be resolved within X number of days. There's one of them that does that. It says 10 days, but there are another two, and it's the complaints and disciplinary procedure. I think it goes in there, and the grievance procedure, the three I'm talking about, where there isn't any mention of a time limit in terms of dealing with things that are raised, that I really think should be in there to some extent. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying we do it today, but I do think it's something we need to look at.
Sonia, then Andy.
Yeah, 71C and 71. Sorry, my brain's right. 71C and 71D, in the light of at least two changes we've had since this was done. One is the new IT system, which means that councillors they're not using their mobiles for council businesses. Some of us did before, and also that we're using a new IT system. And secondly, the decision that was made about the YouTube. Yeah. So those two things need to be fitted into that. I'm not sure where. I haven't had time to think which one it goes into, but obviously there's two changes since these
Thank you,
were done.
Andy.
Well, the YouTube one is the one I just mentioned, especially in relation to retention. But the thing about the new IT system is valid point, because that is new. In relation to the comment that Wendy just made, which should apply to both three, disciplinary, grievance and complaints, we had previously resolved that all the steps that are in Lowestoft Town Council's ownership, so disciplinary, grievance, both the original process and the appeals, and town council complaints as opposed to code of conduct complaints, every step should be 10 working days, because that was standardized, because we used to have bits at 5, bits at 10, and it was all standardized at 10 working days. And if it wasn't possible to do it within 10 working days, that an update would be provided at the end of 10 working days. The only thing in the complaints procedure that a time limit could not be put on is those that are handled externally, i.e. code of conduct complaints. because that's subject to a different authority that we can't control what the turnaround times are there. But anything in that is handled by the town council, the various steps, both initial consideration, acknowledgement, appeal, should all be 10 working days or an update provided at the end of 10 working days. So could we just check that if that isn't the case?
I mean, yeah, just that's just what I was going to say. You know, if staff can check, because I might have missed it. It might be in there, buried there somewhere. But if that was the agreement, then that just needs to be included in all of those policies. So we're not going to. Can we vote on this or not? We can't really, can we?
No.
Can we?
Right.
Well,
What do we do with them?
can we vote to recommend them for adoption to full
Yeah.
council subject to those comments?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Happy to propose that.
Sorry, they need to go to F&G first, I think. It's a normal process.
You're right. I would.
And that's parent of standing orders, isn't it? And policy.
What was that? I missed it.
Process would be not to recommend them to full council, but to recommend them to F&G.
Yes. That's my proposal.
And I'll second.
Uh, 70.2 to consider how to enact the equality and diversity policy. Wendy?
I have to say that I completely missed this item, but I know, so how to enact the equality and diversity policy. It's an enormous subject. How, you know, the actual, how do we enact it? Training, how we appointments, accessibility, language, you know, I'm making this up as I go along, really. So that's all I'm going to say at the moment.
But that's all in the policy, isn't it? Sonia, then Andy.
Yeah, just to say, yeah, I think most of those are in the policy, but we could also say that through events and comms in the wider community, by having 2 events, you know, it's the events we do out in the community, like Pride, like the Kindness Festival. They show that we are outwardly having diversity and equality out there in the community. It's also the fact that we look at things within our policies to do with access to buildings, access to meetings. So yeah, most of those things are covered in the policy, but we could add that we do, you know, we model the behaviour we're saying in our policies out there in the community. We actually do it.
Yeah, Andy?
Yeah, well, I agree with Wendy because and it's not just equality and diversity. We've commented on others about the letter of the policy is one thing, implementation is another one. So one that frequently gets me is community engagement, for similar reasons. And I agree, because when it comes to equality and diversity, there's 2 things. There's internal, you know, councillors and staff and how we interact with each other, and also the other things that Wendy mentioned, including appointments. Then there is our communication and enabling participation with members of the public or any third party. And then there is enabling, you know, participation by future people to actually stand as councillors. And that might be something as basic as, you know, being flexible around meeting times, forms of communication and so on like that. So, but it is such a far-reaching policy. And there's no one size fits all solution. So, and I think our staff should also review this, like, internally with themselves in relation to communication, whether they have any other ideas about communication avenues that we're not currently using that we might use to, I hate jargon, but you know the phrase, to reach harder to reach groups. funding jargon. But I think we need to review internally, but we need to break it down. And obviously, we've just started this thing now where we have this little working group to look at these policies. So maybe we just need to look at it in chunks, come up with some ideas that then can be presented back to personnel, I would suggest, before they go to F&G for consideration as to whether there are things that we can do. Because I agree the letter of the policy is fine, but implementation is always difficult when you have such a far-reaching policy. So maybe we need to come up with suggestions for each element and recommend them to personnel, and then they go where they need to go from personnel. And that would be my proposal.
Wendy, okay. Any other comments? If not, all those in favour? That's 2, 3, 4, 5. Against? Graham, were you voting? Were you voting for? Yes, unanimous then, thank you. 70.3 to review the appraisals process. Andy?
It's probably not one for today because it needs to be tied into the transition to a 3-tier organisational structure. So because we have quadrupled our staff and headcount from 4 to 16 in 3 years, and we agreed last year that, as grounds maintenance are brought in-house, there would be a transitional period over about 12 months. And obviously we've also got the thing coming up with the town hall team where we don't have any of the employees in yet, but we will have a town hall team sat under a town hall manager. So essentially, whereas traditionally we've had sort of like this pyramid structure where everybody has a direct report into the clerk, except for the communications officer who's always since appointment reported to the deputy clerk, we are going to have more people potentially on the middle tier doing appraisals, and I think the policy needs refining in light of that change of structure, and that's all really. So whether when we look at sort of our pathway to achieving that 3-tier structure, we can look at the appraisals process at the same time. Be my proposal.
Wendy?
I'm not against that, but I just wanted to check that that 2 things. One, the mayor and the deputy mayor, the chair of personnel and the deputy chair of personnel have both had appraisal training this year, and because it should have been done. And secondly, if the appraisals of staff have begun or are nearly finished. So 2 parts there.
I can, Chair, I can answer that. Both you and I have had Institute of Personnel Management training on appraisals. We did that a few months ago.
Yeah.
Was that June, July, wasn't it? We did it.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yes, we've both done it, both passed.
But what about your deputies?
Neither of the deputies have.
No,
But that was part of the agreement, wasn't it? That the deputies would as well. It was. It was definitely part of it.
I know we both.
So can that be right? So I think that has to happen. So I propose that the training of both of those, the deputy mayor and the deputy chair of personnel, happens as soon as possible.
Mhm.
Certainly by the end of January, anyway.
Andy?
Andy's got a proposal, so can you tag mine on to yours?
I will. I haven't got a proposal. I was going to make a comment. So, yes, it was agreed last year and reaffirmed at the AGM and reaffirmed at the first personnel meeting after the AGM that actually the mayor and chair of personnel should have appraisal training before they did the clerk's appraisal this year. They didn't have it before they did the clerk's appraisal. It happened afterwards. Because I queried it, and there was a suggestion about exemptions for experience, and I made it clear that it had been quite explicit in the proposal that there would be no exemptions for previous professional experience. So it has happened, but it happened the wrong way around. So the appraisal took place first, and then the training took place. And I don't know. I mean, it's just been explained. I didn't know what professional body had delivered the training. that is the case, and I have an email if there's any dispute on it, because I queried it. So, but I think the proposal was that basically each year, because the mayor and chair of personnel would basically be different each year, it was like each year they would have that training before they delivered that appraisal. So I do have that email. If there's any dispute on this subject, I can produce the email. That's not a problem. You know, but that was the agreement, no exemptions. You know, that needs to happen, because, you know, it had been reaffirmed a couple of times, but still didn't happen the way it should have done. But I'm happy to second the proposal that deputies have it. Obviously, though, being deputies, they wouldn't necessarily be delivering any proposals, appraisals in practice, whereas the mayor and chair of personnel would. But I'm happy to second the proposal that training for them should be built in, because they may be called upon to function in those roles during the year.
The original proposal was that the mayor, the deputy mayor, the chair of personnel, the deputy chair all receive that training.
And I'm happy
So
to,
all I'm
and
saying,
I'm happy to second that, but it
Yeah.
should be annual, not one off,
oh yes,
because
annual,
the
yes.
incumbents will change.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keith?
What penalties will the people occur to if they don't happen to attend this training?
Well, they can't do appraisals.
Yeah.
That's-
Can,
That's a question,
Simple as
open
that.
question for everybody.
yeah, can I just say that Alan and I both, as you know, both of us did, and it's certified it's the personnel management training that we did. It's online, and it was quite intense, wasn't it? It was a number of hours over a
Did it
week.
include appraisals?
Yeah, it was only about appraisals. It was really intense, and it was very good indeed.
That's not my question.
No,
Question's quite
so
clear.
I'm not
What
sure.
happened? You're not answering the question, Sonia, sorry.
No, but what I'm concerned about is if, people should be doing the training, but if they haven't been offered it yet,
Exactly.
that's the key issue here. They need to be offered it, and they need to be offered it between now and when the appraisal is going to happen.
Andy?
Yeah, that's very true. But it was quite explicit in the original proposal that the training should happen within 7 months of the AGM, which was the deadline.
Calm down a little bit, please.
Which was the deadline for the clerk's appraisal, and it didn't happen. The appraisal took place without it, and the training only took place after I queried why the training had not happened before the appraisal. So that is why, because it was stated in the proposal that the training had to happen within X number of months of the AGM at which the mayor and chair of personnel were elected, but before the clerk's appraisal was due, which I think all appraisals have to be done. I can't remember whether it's the end of October or the end of November, but before that due date falls, that was built into the proposal. So that window of time for the training to be sourced and offered was in there. In answer to Keith's question, I would agree with Wendy that basically there's no penalties as such, but unless and until that training takes place, that individual can't do those appraisals.
I'm kind of confused because Sonia and Alan said they both did their training in July, which is I'm confused. So if somebody, but anyway,
Date on the
rather than-
certificate
let's
from the
just
training is the 2nd of September.
Alright, which isn't 7 months after the AGM. That's June, July, August, 4 months.
The issue is, Wendy, the appraisal had taken place
All right.
before then. Well, it had, because I have an email.
Sorry, as I recall it, I agree that the previous appraisal was taken without it, but we haven't done this year's appraisal yet because Shona has been off work.
The town clerk's last appraisal was before the date of the AGM.
I will dig out a copy of the email and I will forward it, because there was a discussion on which the clerk, Alan, and Sonia were all copied in. Okay, I will circulate the email because those three were all on it. I will dig it out and forward it.
Proposal. Somewhere
Yep.
in here there was. a proposal.
Respectfully, can I just comment? You shouldn't be doing as you're told, Sonia, because you're the appraiser and you need to be acting in accordance with a full council resolution that had not only been passed last year, but reaffirmed twice since.
I'm saying is I was sent the information about the personnel management after we asked when we were going to have it, and we both undertook it separately online. And that's what I mean by I did as I was told. I did it on the day suggested. So that was what I mean by that. I just got on with it and did it. So it's been done.
Yes, Wendy.
Yes, there's a proposal
Mhm.
which is about reaffirming that in the policy that the mayor, the deputy mayor, the chair of personnel, the deputy chair of it will all undertake training
Yes.
for appraisals on an annual basis.
Hmm.
If they fail to attend such training, then they will not be allowed
Yeah,
to do
absolutely.
any appraisals.
No, they can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that capture everything that we've been talking about, aside from the fact that things happen the other way around this year? But there's nothing really to be gained from going with that one, is there? Very much. It's lesson learnt, dare I suggest?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's my proposal.
Andy?
Second, on the basis that it is annual.
You're talking, sorry, can I just clarify? You're talking about annual training? Because if the post doesn't change, I can't see why we have to have another lot of training.
Because the incumbents will change.
Yeah, the reason is, right, they might not.
No.
The reason is, I say annual, is because this kind of stuff changes regularly. So it's the appraisals change very, very rapidly. And I think there's nothing wrong with doing a refresher course once a year, even if Sonia is mayor next year and you're chair of personnel. I don't see any harm in it, because this kind of legislation about what you're allowed to do, what you're not, it does change very, very rapidly. So just to make it's easier just to say you do it every year, I think it's like health and safety.
Okay, well, if that's the will of the council, then we'll do it.
Yeah.
So we've had a proposal and a seconder. All those in favour?
Yeah.
That's everybody. Thank you. So does Lauren okay to stay in for these or not?
71, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You want me to leave? So it's 71.1, yes.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Okay, 71 to consider responsibilities, job specs and salary ranges for the following roles and to make recommendation to full council on whether or not to proceed, and some aspects may be confidential. So is there anything we can talk about? It's not confidential, Sarah?
In the information I sent out, there is some contractually sensitive information on costs.
Right.
So public convenience is maybe we need to move to confidential session. Workshop based operative, I think that would be okay. Because that's on job spec and person spec. And gardeners, I think that would be okay because that's on job spec and person spec.
Okay, so if we go to 71.2, then Elise can come back in, can't she?
Yeah, she's got to go out again.
Well, once we get to confidential, don't want to
Confidential session.
So that would be true.
don't want to leave her out there all this time. Shall I pop them together?
I'll go.
Sorry, Elise, we've moved on to the next one, leaving that first one to confidential.
Yeah, now that Councillor Young was back into the open session, I'm not sure. I've got a question if I could ask Councillor Youngman, which is confusing me. My question really is, who do you work for?
She doesn't have to disclose that in public session.
Sorry?
She doesn't have to disclose.
No, well, if she's not in the room in a confidential session, I can't ask the question, can I?
I can answer the question when we get the
On her behalf.
confidential. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Sorry, 71.2, the workshop-based operative. Andy.
Well, this was requested by our facilities staff when they came to meet budget and loan in the middle of October. It was essentially someone to be based there all the time. I think quite a bit of time is taken up currently by all the grounds maintenance staff, sort of, I don't know the phrase, sort of like work up time, like in the morning before they go out and do their duties. And it was felt that having a workplace operative to basically sort of do all the setup and to be there to effectively manage the premises day to day, but who could also offer backup where required and be an extra ground maintenance hand would be desirable for efficiency purposes to support the ground maintenance operation. And so we agreed that we would put it forward to personnel. I did ask Johnny whether they were thinking full time. He said yes. And I said, we didn't mention numbers, but I said, what sort of salary range would it be the same as for like the ground maintenance personnel, like in the same bracket? And he said yes. So it is here really as a recommendation from staff, but because it was presented to budget and loan, that that's why we put it on the agenda. But we essentially are forwarding it as a request from our facilities and ground maintenance staff.
Sorry. Wendy.
I could be wrong, but didn't it come from F&G as well? The recommendation to approve. I can't remember now if it. I know I've seen it before, and I know we've discussed it.
Budget and loan.
Was it budget and loan? That was it? Yes. Yeah, I think it's a very good idea. I propose we approve this.
Andy.
Yeah. What I don't know is I think it was required from next year, so I think we should approve it. I think the intention of the purpose, but forgive me, because we haven't got a document, was that we would like the post to take effect from next April, so that we would build it in the 24-25 budget. And if that's the case, I would second the approval, but I would ask our staff, and obviously that will be that will need consultation with the facility staff who come this up to sort of firm up on the salary range that it's going to go out as. Yeah. And I don't think it needs to come back to personnel. I think we can sort of progress it to the point where we have a budget and a spec that we can go out to tender with, and maybe it then just comes back to authorize actually going out to tender. But budget, and obviously, because we need to go to full council to approve the procurement. So I would say we recommend it to December full council as an appointment from April 2024, and ask our staff if they can actually firm up on the detail around the salary band and the spec to full council, so that if full council is supportive, it can then put an appropriate delegation in place to progress.
Sorry, the suggested salary band was on the paperwork, and it's in line because it's, I think the conclusions with microphones, Wendy, microphone. The conclusions of my discussions with the relevant officers was that it wouldn't be 100% workshop based. It might be start of the day, end of the day, and they would go out to do tasks in line with the other grounds maintenance operatives. Therefore, there was no reason that it wouldn't be on the same salary banding. That's what's included on the attachment on my email I sent to you on Friday at 16:12.
It was on the email, was it?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's-
I was looking in the briefing papers on the website and I couldn't see it. That's where I was getting confused.
Because
That's fine.
Yeah, they all, everything I sent for personnel was by email because I sent it out and it was at 16:12 on Friday afternoon.
That's absolutely fine. And Johnny did say it was envisaged that they would go out and about with the other ground maintenance operatives, but the discussion wasn't as granular as like how many hours on the site and how many hours out. And I think that would just be like the operational things like that would just be left to staff to sort out. But I would like to propose then that we endorse the request and we recommend it to personnel as an appointment from April next year. And we therefore ask for the relevant costs to be built in, if full council agrees, into the 24-25 budget. And obviously, if it's a salary band, that basically we budget on the highest point of the band, so that if somebody comes in lower down on the band, we have an underspend rather than the other way around. We don't want to budget lower and end up with an overspend. But that's my I would propose. Well, Wendy's proposed, so I would endorse that on that basis.
You happy with that, Wendy? Yeah. Anybody have comment? If not, all those in favour? That's everybody. Keith, were you voting? One abstention, yeah.
I've got other questions to ask at a later date.
Okay. 71.3 gardeners. Andy?
Yeah. So I saw the comment from Johnny, and I'm not unsympathetic, but I also the idea behind this was that gardeners are distinct from ground maintenance operatives. So I think the idea that they should be basically primarily ground maintenance, but maybe with the extra skill or qualification that that they can do gardening is not really the idea of the post. And the idea is also not that they be assigned to specific locations, that they be on staff and then staff would assign them where needed, depending on what gardening was going on. So I think it probably needs some more work. I wouldn't want to propose it as basically ground maintenance people who do some gardening, because the distinction was that they are distinct roles. I think maybe it should, because again, if these came on board, they won't come on board till next April. So I think maybe it should go to parks to have a conversation about, and then a recommendation from there, because gardening is going to primarily be something that is happening around what we're doing in our parks. And I think that would be a more appropriate forum to discuss whether we need gardeners as such, or whether we need ground maintenance people who do some gardening.
Thank you, Andy. Sarah, then Wendy.
Just ask if members are happy with that in terms of the costing getting agreed for the budget. That's all. If the decision to appoint as from April next year got delayed, would it miss the budget round? That's all. There's a parks before Christmas, but not an aid. Is that right? The agenda's gone out for parks.
Wendy?
Yeah, I mean, the recommendation, I believe, did come from Parks. So it's already been at Parks. So sending it back to Parks. And I haven't seen Johnny's email, so I don't know what Johnny has said. I don't know why I haven't seen Johnny's email.
Because there's not an email from Johnny to see. It was his comments were included in my email that I sent out all the personnel papers.
Right. Okay. Could you possibly summarize what those comments were, Sarah? Because I can't find that email. The only email I can find on gardeners is the one with a kind of rough outline of the role.
Yeah, it's the same. That's the same one. It's the same one, yeah. It's the last paragraph of that email. 1st of December at 16:12. You've got you've got a draft advertisement attached, but in the actual content of the email, there's commentary from myself and Johnny.
Oh God. Oh, never mind. Well, is there any point in it going back to Parks is what I'm going to say, because Parks has already said we like the idea. So maybe a better way is to send it to full council with staff and maybe members of this committee discussing the nitty gritty of it, of when it's of F&G, you know, I don't know. I mean, we either keep going around in circles, or having said we like the idea in principle at Parks, what we need to do now is see, is it affordable, and is it, can we practically afford it? Or is it affordable? Is the job spec right?
I agree.
That's it.
I agree, but we need people to participate in that discussion
Yes.
who aren't necessarily on personnel or the other committees.
Well,
People who
yeah,
have
but-
people who have the Parks knowledge. Yeah. And I think, but I agree, and I agree with Sarah that a decision needs to be made to inform the budget. Otherwise, we're in the position of having to put contingency in because we won't get a decision in time. So I would suggest that we send it to full council without a recommendation for discussion and a decision in full council.
Okay, is there any recommendation of how many? Because it says gardeners plural here.
I think it had been mooted as possibly 2, but there was no firm proposal. 2 gardeners on staff, but not 2 gardeners assigned to specific locations. So they could work across multiple sites as required. And there was not even a proposal as to whether they should be all year round or seasonal. That was another thing that, you know, there had been some discussion about. They might just be seasonal because the majority of it taking place there, but then obviously we're talking about winter planting and so on like that. So I think these are the things that need ironing out. But I agree with Wendy, is you can always find another committee to send it to because it might have input on a particular aspect. And I think it's time that it went to full council, where basically everybody who needs to offer an opinion is there. Just has a chance to be there.
Sonia, do you have your hand up? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sarah, did
No. I've studied the Green Book.
Yeah.
A gardener is a specific job within the Green Book, which we operate to, as I understand, when it suits us. So this needs to be investigated as to what the wage scales are and the position of a gardener under the Green Book. It's quite specific in there. Thank you for reminding me.
thank you. Wendy,
Well, do you do East Suffolk Council operate under what is the Green Book? I know there's one that we talk about in relation to the Marina Theatre, but it's the first time I've heard it in terms of ground maintenance. So what is it?
yes, Keith.
And is it one that we actually do use? Because it's certainly never come up in personnel before.
It's local
Can I respond to that? It's probably because of the members of the town council are not conversant with the national agreements covering town councils, district councils and Suffolk County councils. It's a Green Book adapted by, and it's recognised by the unions, and it's run by Unison and GMB. They've got different recognised depending on the value of the membership. And we take the Green Book as the national agreement for the current wage rates for our operatives in this establishment. It's quite there for everybody to see. You only have to go on to the site and that will give you all the information. It's about 400 pages long. It's different aspects of different what can I say? I don't want to diversify or get into an argument or a degree, but if you're into construction, the basic agreement is the Blue Book. If you're a lagger, it's a Purple Book, and you go on and on and on. And in our case, it's the Green Book for local authorities.
The local government association.
And yes, the East Suffolk, in my understanding, do, and so does Suffolk. I don't think Suffolk County Council have any gardeners. But I'm sure if you ask our gardeners what got transferred over under TUPE, they will be able to tell you that they were paid by the Green Book. Thank you.
When, Sonia?
Yeah, just to avoid confusion, the Green Book to do with the Marina Theatre is a separate thing to do with climate emergency and actions to reduce carbon footprint. So it is green, but it's a different sort of green.
Yes, Wendy.
Well, my point is, I mean, I'm not disputing anything that Keith said. All I'm saying, Keith, is that it's never come up in this committee ever before. Now, you've been on the personnel committee, you've never brought it up. Now, suddenly we're hearing about how I know that we have agreed pay scales and all the rest of it. So I'm going to ask Sarah. Sarah, do we adhere to the Green Book?
Well, yeah, because the National Joint Council is the pay scales that we're paid by.
That's fine.
I don't know if we can directly access the Green Book because it's a local government association that normally applies to county and district councils, not local councils. But the basis of it, the NJC, is the basis of the pay scales that everyone here is paid on.
Can I just say the reason it hasn't
Keith
been
and then
brought up
Andy.
before is because we've never had, up until just recently, gardeners and other operatives within our organisation.
Andy?
Yeah, so I think basically if this is, I don't know if anyone seconded my proposal, but if somebody does, that we basically send this to full council for discussion and decision, but without a recommendation. If the determination of full council is that we should recruit, then obviously it's incumbent on us to ensure that we recruit within the appropriate NJC framework that we have committed to.
Wendy?
And part of that decision might be that we actually realise we don't really want a gardener, that what we want is something more of a kind of grounds maintenance person. It might be something we decide, because if a gardener role is too prescriptive, which means that this person could only go out and plant bulbs and do a bit of pruning, it might be that we think, do we really want 2 extra people doing that job? It might, so that's something we obviously have to take on board. So we need, Keith is saying that there is a description that's agreed of what a gardener does in the Green Book. Can we have that circulated to us? And then maybe we can see, is this appropriate for us, or maybe we need to use a different job description, a job type?
Yeah, I'm not sure who was first at you two. Yeah, Graham, then Andy.
One thing I would say to that, we've had gardeners transfer over under Tubi, and the thing is, they actually maintain those conditions of service. Those people that transfer over under Tubi.
I've not had any gardeners transfer over. They've all been ground maintenance operatives, and that's what their contracts of employment were.
Andy?
So can we not get into that discussion in public session, because the individuals are probably going to be identifiable?
Yes.
But the point that Wendy made is valid. It's equally valid that if we just have ground maintenance people and they do gardening, if they get a bit of time, they might never get a bit of time, which is where we came to have this item to start with. But the point is, if we send it without a recommendation, we are not prejudging that discussion. The discussion about what we need and whether they are gardeners or whether they are ground maintenance people who do a bit of gardening as well. But we need to make sure that whatever we do, if we have a gardening requirement, there is time built into the operation schedule that they actually do it, and are enabled to do it. And I think that's the discussion that needs to be had. But if there are NJC requirements around what a gardener's duty are and aren't, then I agree that we need to know what those are so that we don't inadvertently fall foul of them.
A proposal, Andy? Oh, your proposal, Andy, second. Any other comment? Oh, Elise? Sorry, Elise.
I was just saying, a gardener is just not someone who prunes plants and plants bulbs. They have the know-how of what plants go with what plants, how they grow, what will look nice, and the stuff that we don't actually have the know-how how to do. So we're going to need someone like that. Someone to look after our roses would be fantastic, because the ones in Bellevue Park are really not doing very well. Thus, a grounds maintenance person without the proper training is not going to know how to look after these plants that we actually have.
Okay,
Just to clarify and clear up the issue, it's on the agenda as gardeners, not ground maintenance. I picked it up as a gardener, so I follow the information. If you want a ground maintenance persons, then that's still be it. But the issue was gardeners. Thank you.
right, can we move this on? We've already recommended it to go to full council. And I don't want to prolong this anymore,
No.
get backwards and forwards. Andy, I'll take yours, then we just move on.
No, I mean, I think Keith did it. I think just to clarify, the suggestion come out that we had gardeners. A counter suggestion came in that we need ground mates, people who do a bit of gardening. So we need full council to decide, and we are not making a recommendation. We are asking them to decide the issue.
The proposal has been done, I believe, and a seconder. All those in favour? That's one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 against. Abstain. 1 abstention. Thank you. Right. Is anything on 72, Sarah? We can talk in public session. Yeah.
Could I ask that it be considered after 73.1 because there will be an overlap?
Okay. Yeah. So we'll have to go into confidential then.
I propose we do. Whatever we do.
No.
I propose we go into confidential. Now, yes? Oh, we want to do it in the next meeting first.
Sarah, did you want to say anything?
No, Chair, I do believe all the other items are now confidential. So if you do 75, which is the date of the next meeting.
Yeah.
Et cetera, then we can move to confidential.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, next meeting is 4th of January at 1 o'clock to be confirmed. Any items for the next agenda? You sent to Lauren a good week before.
Ask on that.
Yeah.
It says there to be confirmed. Now, if the agenda's going out on the 4th of January, that means the agenda would have, if the date of the next meeting is the 4th of January, staff would have to send that out and get the work done on the 29th of December. But if, as long as you send it out, because I'm concerned about, you won't be doing it during that time, will you? So you're sending it out before? Yeah, that's all right. I was just going to check because thinking about the extra work involved. Thank you.
Right, to resolve under public bodies admission to meetings Act 1960, the public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that publicity will be prejudicial to public interest by reason of the confidential nature of the business to be transacted, namely any legal issues or employment matters relating to items on this agenda, including the following: any employment matters relating to items on this agenda, including those above, as required. And we go, proposal Wendy, second Andy, all those in favour? Grab you vote in. Yeah, that's everybody.
Right,
Thank you. Okay, I know we're nearly 2